Hello, everyone. Welcome to Open Up Show. My name is Sivam. I'm sorry for the disturbance because we had some technical difficulties from our end, from StreamYard. So today we have an amazing guest, and then all the way from UK. So we're going to have a very good discussion. But before I bring him to the screen, I want to give you some details about our organization. Voice of Men 360 is a non-profit organization founded in 2020, and it's based in London, Ontario, Canada. Voice of Men 360 was born out of tremendous need and a commitment to provide services that help support and overcome the life challenges of men and boys. Um, we are part of International Men's Day. International Men's Day has been observed for over 25 years, and to date, 95 countries around worldwide have joined in. With the regular activities, IMD follows six pillars that focuses on the overall well-being of boys and men. We follow in the same footstep. We usually bring every week Sunday this live show from 7 p.m. Eastern time. But normally, actually today is a special guest from different time zone, so we choose to 10 a.m. Eastern time. We want to bring individuals to share their life journey and then talk about men's voice issues. Um, Before introduce our special guest today, I would like to review our disclaimer. Voice of Men, we would like to remind you that Voice of Men 360's mission is always delivered in good faith to promote peaceful harmony. The views and opinions expressed in today's episode are those of our speakers and do not represent Voice of Men 360. Our organization participate in discussion forums to provide inspiration and raise awareness of the challenges men face as they work to overcome them. We are not providing medical or therapeutic advice. Should you require such assistance, we recommend that you contact a medical professional immediately. If you have questions or concerns about today's episode or any Voice of Mental 360 content, please email us at info@voiceofmen360.org. Like I said earlier, we do have a amazing guest today, Marc Rowley, founder and CEO of HIT leadership consultant, practitioner with over 30 years of senior corporate experience across small, medium, and large organizations. He works at the intersection of leadership, productivity, employee engagement, and mental resilience. University lecturer, integrated counselor, mental health professional, and experienced facilitator. He is the creator of the HIT Leadership 6 Ps of Productivity Framework. Mark also provides one-to-one coaching as well. Welcome, Mark. Thank you for joining.
And Sivam, thank you very much for introducing me and also inviting me onto this Voice of Men 360 podcast. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great to have you. And also, I just want to send out our thanks to Francisca to introduce you. So let's dive into some of the questions I really want to discuss today with you. Busy versus productive. Why is it hard for men to stop equating long hours with high value?
Yeah, this is a really good question, because one thing I always say to men I work with on this is most of you are not lazy, you're overloaded, because they're giving everything they've got, but the output sometimes doesn't actually match the effort, and that disconnect slowly messes with their confidence. So busy gives you something to point at, look how hard I'm working, look how much I'm carrying, but productivity is quieter, and it often looks like stopping things or letting something fail on purpose because it's no longer matters. Now, I've actually worked with a senior manager recently who felt guilty every time he left before 7 p.m. and he thought his team would judge him if he left earlier. And in reality, his team were exhausted watching him react to everything instead of setting direction. And we sometimes think that more and harder is better, but it's not. Because when I challenged his behavior, two things happened. His team relaxed and he started making better decisions. And sometimes the hardest shift is realizing that your value isn't how much you absorb, it's in how much clarity you create. Because let's be honest, busy hides anxiety and productivity requires courage, a voice. I think that to me is key. And there was 5 things I always say to people I work with to change this. What would actually matter if you did less? Sometimes people need to think about that. But also scheduling in thinking time. That is so important. We don't put enough time into reflection, but also thinking. And one thing that's big, especially with men, is the guilt. So challenge guilt around rest. You need to rest. If you're not rested, you cannot be there for your teams. You cannot be there for your business. You cannot be there for your family. And I think define success before starting, because sometimes we just bulldozer ahead and we don't define what the end goal is. And for me, that's key.
Absolutely, because of the corporate world for such a longest time in our history after the industrialization and things like that. It's for many years we have been taught, or that's the way we were grown up, right? So it's of course it's very hard to change overnight, but at the same time they had to realize, right? Sometimes, especially when we talk about men's lives and matters,
Mm,
most of the accidents and mental health issues happens at workplace, right? So some of the factors that you mentioned here is very valid. So they had to take care of themselves, right? Slow down. Absolutely.
absolutely.
That's I want to tie up with the second question: mental fog. How can you tell when your brain is too stressed to make a good business decision?
Yeah, and I see this is one of the things that always worries me about mental health is how normal it becomes, because you can get addicted to the cortisol that's created by stress. I know people who've gone on holiday and they felt weird because they're not doing anything. They start to relax, and it's because they've got addicted to that cortisol and that feeling of that cortisol. So I think when you hear men say things like, "Well, that's just the job," or "Everybody feels like this," um, it becomes like a badge of honor, but really it should be a warning sign, because when your brain is overloaded, it actually narrows its focus, and you stop being curious and you start becoming more defensive. I see this a lot with people that I work with, that defensiveness that comes up, which is normally down to the increased size of the amygdala or just our egos, unfortunately. But I've watched leaders dismiss good ideas simply because they didn't have the capacity to hear them. One client said to me, "I feel like everything is urgent and nothing is important," and that's what mental fog is. So you're operating, but you're not present. You're not in the present moment, and the danger is you still sound confident, so nobody challenges you. And that's how poor decisions get locked in. And the earlier you notice mental fog, the easier it is to correct. And you ignore it, and it starts running the show. And I've said to people, you need to notice the irritability as an early signal. If you start getting irritable at things you wouldn't normally do, mental fog is on its way. And we really need to slow the body before the engaging brain. I had there's one thing I teach, and I've actually had a tattoo done recently, and it's about breathing, and it's a Sanskrit for breathe. Or if we just take that breath before we speak, before we engage, it actually stops our reptilian brain, our emotional side taking over, and our logical brain gets time, prefrontal cortex gets time just to start to talk. And if you need to reduce that cognitive load, so it's not just time, the amount of stuff that we're thinking of. Cognitive load theory, which is an academic piece that people have been talking about for a few years now, it really is insightful, and I would highly recommend anybody watching this podcast to actually read about that. The other thing I would say is people need to build reflection into their day. Because if you're reflecting on your day, you'll see the irritability, you'll see patterns of how things are happening. And your nearest and dearest, your partner or your colleague at work, whoever you have, just ask for perspective, because sometimes when the fog sets in, you cannot see that perspective and you get blinded by the mental fog. And that's the problem with fog, isn't it? It clouds our judgments and everything.
Yeah, what we're talking about when we come across the business world is, more than 8 hours, 10 hours, or sometimes 14 hours a day, right? So it's of course, we call workaholic and things like that, but there's more than something work, in our life, right? So we are here for many reasons, or maybe even one reason. It's more than work, right?
Absolutely.
So the self-awareness is very, very important, right? And after 30, 40 years, and then you come back and then you see, you turn around and you see what you achieved, or what you went through. It's nothing matter anymore, right? Exactly, right. um, I really want to ask you this one, because the thing is that we especially when you deal with the business world, and then you deal with businessmen, the 6 Ps. Can you share the 6 Ps briefly? What is the one thing men usually ignore in the 6 Ps framework that cost them the most results?
Absolutely, yeah. So if I'll just quickly say what the 6 Ps are. So first one is people, so that's the leadership and employee engagement. Then you've got products, which is delivering value to your customers and making sure that they're doing the right thing. Partners, leveraging suppliers and customer growth. Processes, streamlining operations for efficiency. Perseverance, which is that mental resilience. But the last one, and it's the one that gets overlooked a lot, is positivity, because it often gets dismissed because it doesn't feel tangible. Now, men, we like things that we can measure, like targets, processes, systems, etc. But the emotional environment shapes all of those around us. And I've seen teams with solid processes still underperform because people didn't feel safe enough to use them. Psychological safety and positivity are the foundation of psychology in helping our teams understand what we're doing. You see, positivity isn't about praise, it's about predictability. People need to know what happens when they speak up, what happens when they get something wrong, what happens when they challenge you. When leaders are unpredictable, people shut down. If you feel like you're going to be shouted at, if you feel that so if you say something to a leader that they're going to snap at you, because stress and anxiety do that to you. And once that it happens, no amount of process will fix it either. And this is the thing we need to understand, because the irony is that leaders then push harder, thinking effort is the issue, when actually it's psychological safety. It's one thing I do when I teach international students. I build that psychological safety, and that's why I have very high engagement scores. But some of the things that I teach people, especially leaders and men, how to how to fix this and what needs to be changed is be consistent in reactions. So emotional intelligence, which is basically don't allow our emotions to overpower our intelligence, is so key when you're dealing with human beings, and all our brains are different, and you don't know what's going on in someone else's life, what's happening at home, what's happening in their world. Just be consistent with reactions and respond to mistakes with curiosity. One thing I teach, it's good to make mistakes because we learn from them and we build from them. But if you're chastising, if you are really not being very kind to people when their mistakes are made, if it's a continuous mistake, then obviously there's a development plan that's required, or something else. But if you respond with curiosity, you can move forward and people will feel able to do that. Explain why, not just what, I think as well is a really good key thing to remember. And I think the last one is monitor emotional safety regularly. If you reflect on yourself daily, you will know there's times where you haven't been your best version of yourself, and how people, if you notice their reactions, will shy away from telling you things or challenging you. This is why humble and empathetic leadership is so key, because we're moving into an age where there is so much going on. There are going to be people, hopefully, that you're employing that know more than you, and we need to trust them and they need to trust you. So emotional regulation is so key.
Absolutely. So those are the very important aspects people has to understand, right? Because otherwise, um, sooner or later, of course, it will impact their mental wellness
Mm.
very badly, right? So, I also want to quickly ask you if we can touch upon that challenges versus pressure, because of course we all of us as a human being, we need challenges, but at the same time, especially business people, men, they do take it more seriously and then take it as pressure. So how we can navigate or how we can balance those two sides, balances and pressures.
So that pressure, well, I think men have this thing about toughness, don't they? And sometimes that toughness is really, it's not the right level. Because we've been sold it as endurance. Keep going, don't complain, push through. But in endurance without regulation leads to breakdown. And I've seen men ignore stress until their bodies force them to listen. Heart issues, burnout, explosive anger. You take this out on the people that are closest to you as well, your family. And that's not strength. That's deferred damage. Now, see, for me, real resilience looks quieter. It looks like stopping before things break, taking that breath. It looks like adjusting to pace, because you're going to have ups and downs in businesses. You're going to be riding along at 120 miles an hour, and then sometimes you take a step back and you're going along at 40 for a short period. It looks like choosing, people need to understand, choosing long-term effectiveness over short-term approval. Sometimes we can need approval when actually that just puts more stress and pressure on us, because if you think about it in the long term, the strongest leaders don't make stress their identity. They manage it like any other risk. Short-term stress does help. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's when you're living in it, that's when it can cause major problems, mentally and physically. Our mind-body connection is key, and it can have detrimental effects to us. So the things that I try and help men understand and to change is to redefine toughness as regulation. So being tough is, for me, is how kind I can be, especially in a fast-paced environment when you're dealing with things. If you can be kind to people, that's a great toughness. But you also need to listen to those physical warning signs. If you're feeling headaches, sleepless nights, it's affecting your libido, it's affecting your diet. You need to listen to these physical warnings. And sometimes you have to build recovery into performance. So I try to say to people, train your mind as hard as you train your body. So if you're doing physical fitness, you need to do mental fitness training as well. And one of those things is to talk about pressure early. Talk to other people in a similar situation. Talk to friends that you have that psychological safety with, because we're all in this for the long run. So choose sustainability over image. Image will come and go. You sustain. It's about long-term investment in your mind and body. So really listen to the physical signs and think about how it's affecting you, but also the people around you. I think that's key.
Absolutely. One thing I want to remind you guys that today's our focus is how to increase productivity in businesses, employee engagement, and mental resilience. So let's talk about the recovery part. Of course, you touched. If you were thinking training like an athlete for your job, what would your off season or recovery look like?
Well, let's be honest, recovery is one of the hardest things for men to take seriously. It feels undeserved, and it sometimes can feel lazy. Our testosterone has a lot to pay for that. But performance without recovery always declines eventually. Athletes understand this, that training breaks the body down, recovery rebuilds it. And leadership does the same thing mentally. Every decision, every conflict, every responsibility takes something out of you. If you never put anything back, you're running on empty without realizing it. Now, one leader told me he hadn't had a day without emails in 5 years, and he thought that was commitment. And really, it was erosion, because recovery isn't escape, it's preparation. I think you can work hard, but also play hard. Spend that time. If you don't recover, you will burn out. If you don't have recovery elements built into your schedule, into your work plan, you will burn out. I mean, some of the things I say to the people I work with is plan rest. Don't hope for it. Don't think, oh, I'll rest after I've done this. You need to plan your rest early on. Before prevention is better than cure. And by doing that, you can create tech-free recovery time. So go out in nature, see the beauty of the world, of what Mother Nature provides for you. Just go out and smell the flowers, see the animals, be in awe of nature and all it has. And one of the big things to recovery is sleep. This is when our body and our minds repair itself. Our minds have sleep cycles, where it gets rid of and sorts things out and then gets rid of stuff. And we need to protect sleep ruthlessly. It is so important. And if you can, use nature or movement to reset. So do physical training, go for walking, do Tai Chi, do kickboxing, do something that works well for you. Everybody has a different way of doing it. Some people find different ways to recoup. But being out in nature, and if you're out in nature, barefoot is the best. You ground yourself, you breathe in the air, you just relax. And really, I would recommend review recovery weekly. It's not something that needs to be once a quarter. You need to be factoring this into your reflection. How am I feeling? Do I need a break? Do I need an afternoon off? Do I need to put a bit of time aside for me? Because if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after others. And I think that's a key thing for people to understand. And if athletes do it, we need to be doing it as well.
Absolutely, those are key points, key recommendations, great points that people have to think over and over. Some of them it's not new, but at the same time we had to refresh every time, right? So
Mm.
otherwise we forget. Sometimes we never thought about it, or we ignore it, avoid many times, right? Especially connecting with nature, for example, just go out and then just walk. Connecting with nature is very very important. I want to talk about this. Mental health. Let's talk about the mental health. How can we talk about counseling in a way that sounds like a performance tool rather than a weakness? Especially, how important is it for men to have a safety net, build a social circle, and have a trusted people around them?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest barrier to counselling is for men is pride. Um, and there's more strength in admitting that something's wrong or needing asking for help than we realise, because it's not arrogance, it is just pride, the belief that you should be able to deal with it, to handle it alone. I think society puts that pressure on us to think that we should be able to handle it. You're a man, you're a boy, stop crying, you don't do that, you'll come across as weak. You see, no high performer operates alone. So counseling and finding your tribe, finding the people you have psychological safety with, gives you a place to think clearly without performing. No judgment, no role, just perspective. And I think I've seen men realize patterns they've been repeating for decades without noticing, just because they opened up. How they react under pressure, how they avoid certain conversations, how stress leaks into their leadership. You see, that awareness that you can get from your tribe, from counseling, from talking to people, that alone can change everything. Because talking to others or counseling isn't about weakness, it's about gaining clarity. And clarity is a performance advantage. Um, it's like when an athlete finds a new way of recovering or building strength in a certain area, you do it without ego involved or anything like that, or pride. You just do it because you want to be the best. And as men, we need to understand. Let's talk openly. Let's see a counsellor, see a therapist. Normalize mental maintenance. Invest in clarity. Focus on patterns, not problems. But also, we've got to put this in place before crisis hits, because having support, seeing a counsellor, having counselling is leadership support for you in business and in life. It helps clarify things. And you'll find as well, if you've got the psychological safety with your tribe, with your group of people, and with your counsellor, which there should be a counselling code of conduct anyway, where nothing is mentioned, you can open up. And that, when you can open up, you can cry, you can release, you can talk about things you wouldn't want to talk about in front of others because of fear of being seen as weak. That is the key. It's so important to us and our mental health, without a doubt.
Absolutely. You explained very well. And also, I want to touch up on that. Uh, Vulnerability is also the key, and people most of the time, especially men, we do misunderstand about that term, and also that counseling or seeking for help is we really really want to, especially nowadays, normalizing. It's
Mm.
very important, right? Not only in men's circle but also outside people, the society and everywhere, right? Has to be normalized, so that's way men can come forward and then seek for help, and then openly having discussion about their mental issues or emotional challenges, right? That's what's very
Absolutely.
important. Yeah. Um, so, based on your experience, Mark, because you have been working with small, large, medium organizations, and of course, teaching at a university level, and what do you think of why is it important to change business culture, having an open discussion about mental wellness, especially men's mental wellness? How can business take call to action steps?
I think this matters more than most businesses even realise. I mean, for a start, stress will cause people to take more time off work. It ruins productivity. But going back to culture, culture isn't what's written on the wall or the posters or whatever. It's what people feel allowed to say out loud. And in many workplaces, especially male dominated ones, the unspoken rule is still keep it together, don't show strain, just get on with it. And ladies as well get pulled into that male dominated area as well. And the problem is pressure doesn't disappear because you ignore it. It leaks into short tempers, it leads into poor decisions, it leads into disengaged teams, and eventually people start leaving or burning out. Men in particular are taught to manage stress privately, to handle it alone and not talk about it. So what happens at work, men show up functionally but not well. They perform but they don't process. And I've worked with senior leaders who were trying huge, carrying that huge pressure quietly. And on paper, they looked like they were coping. In reality, their thinking was narrowing and their relationships inside and outside of work were suffering. So when businesses create space, places to talk about mental wellness openly, something shifts. Not emotional dumping, not therapy sessions, but honesty. So when leaders say pressure is part of the job and so is managing it, people stop pretending. They start thinking better. They start supporting each other. Mental wellness isn't a personal issue. It's a performance issue, and really ignoring it doesn't make a business tougher. It makes it brittle, and I'm sure we've all seen that, haven't we? When that happens.
Absolutely, Mark, because the reason why I brought this question is that when we see, often we don't see um, some news or stories in the media, but time to time we see it even big celebrities and other peoples too, right? They uh, come across mental breakdowns or even suicidal or things like that, right? So it
Absolutely.
is very much important to talk about it, and then eventually we had to start somewhere to change the business culture, and then having a open discussion. It's a lot of things going on, so it's very must not only one person but the whole organization, self-employed or corporate world, anywhere between 18 what we're talking about 8 9 10 12 14 hours a day. We are working at a place, and then we are going through so much pressure and challenges, right? So we had to think all of them. So anyway, so the next question I will have is that can, can you talk about your organization, hit leadership? How do you help your clients? In what ways? Can you share a little bit more details? And I already displayed the email address and social media handles and the website address so people can reach out to you guys. So go ahead.
Yeah, basically, leadership can go into any organization and work out where the problems are in why productivity is going down, while you're getting more sickness, while your employees are leaving. Some people think, oh, we'll just get someone else, but they don't realize the cost, the training, everything that goes into building people up. So we do different kinds of training, problem solving, coaching, mentorship, anything along those lines. And we always leave the organization with a continuous service improvement framework. And this allows the organization with their employees to have a safe place for ideas, because once you start getting that psychological safety in, leading with empathy and humility, you start getting people coming up and having ideas. And so you need a platform, you need a framework to do that. And that's what we're keen. One with the business change management, but also with the continuous improvement framework. So that they're the kinds of things we do. We'll talk about everything from mental health to leading in a way that gets the best out of people. And I think we all need that. A lot of businesses do suffer, especially when people are promoted into positions where they're good at a role, but not necessarily people. And it's not their fault either. The business just believes, oh, yeah, they're right. So we help them with that as well.
Absolutely. I come across some data so long ago, a couple of years back. Every year in Canada, I'm talking about 50 or more thousand businesses registered, but the second year, third year, fourth year, more than 50%, or I would say like maybe 10% out of that, it's survive. So rest of them, it's disappear right away. So there are so many reasons behind that, right? So we had to think about that too. Um, one last question, Mark. What is one message that you would love to convey to not only businessmen but also organizations when we talk about think about men's issues?
Yeah, there's one thing I want any businessman to hear is you don't need to be tougher, you need to be clearer. Most men I work with are carrying more than they can admit: responsibility, expectation, pressure to perform and provide. They think strength means holding it all together silently, and it doesn't. So real strength is knowing when someone needs attention. Real leadership is knowing when to pause before you push. And you don't lose respect by taking care of your mind, you gain capacity. And businesses that win long term aren't run by the hardest men, they're run by the cleverest ones. So if you take one thing away, let it be this: stop waiting for things to break before you act. Your mind is your main asset. Look after it with the same discipline you bring to your work and also to your physical health. And that's not a weakness, that's leadership.
Absolutely, Mark. It's such a pleasure having you and then hearing you your experiences overall, your
Thank
personal
you.
perspectives. Absolutely, because the experiences you have been, it's every sides I can see because not from one person, but also from a word view of large organization, things like that. So you have a tremendous experience. So we can grab some ideas from you, and this people who are watching on the other end, they can grab at least one word or couple of ideas. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you, Mark, once again, and then thanks to our good friend Francisca for introducing you. Thank you.
And thank you for your kind words. I do appreciate it. Thank
Absolutely. Of course, we will bring you back to a future episode, and then we will discuss more because there are so many things, especially in the business world, we had to talk about it. You can name it financial pressure and other pressures that we had to talk about it. But this time we will leave it here, and then we will come back next time. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks. So, viewers, it is absolutely a pleasure to have Mark, a great addition to our episode today. And we have of course, you can see our, on Sundays, we have this episode open up evening, 7 p.m. Eastern time. So you can join our podcast and share your life journey with us. You never know because it can be one word, it can be the whole story. Whoever is watching on the other side, we want to make a positive impact on their lives, so it will make some sort of progress in a good healthy way. So that's what our intention is, that so you can join our podcast, and at the same time Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Voiceover 360, and join our Facebook group and all social media. We are there, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, of course, and Facebook. So you go to our website, www.voiceover360.org. Even if you want to contribute in some ways, directly or indirectly, as a working together, volunteer, absolutely we are expecting, we are looking for. So please continue your support, and we will see you next time. Thank you. Thank you.